5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm supposed to say hi, like you're sitting across from me, but you're not, so whatever. I'm just doing this to do it. I don't know why. I'm 65 years old. I should be out of this stuff by now, but I'm not. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's been here my whole life. Maybe I never grew up and I'm surrounded by toys and books and Batmobiles and starships. But I guess I'm just a fanboy, like some of you, or most of you, or all of you. I don't know which ones you are. You're not like me, but you are like me. That's not cryptic. That's just me trying to think of something to say. Well, this is actually my first foray into this. I don't really like showing my face because, anyway, I don't want to be negative, but I got to say that modern entertainment isn't all that entertaining. And the stuff that's lauded by people doesn't really deserve it. It's too expensive, it's too unimaginative, and people with any real creative ability are keeping their ideas to themselves because they don't want some huge corporation to take it, run with it, and claim it as theirs. Like, if I had an idea, it's mine until I sell the option to Netflix or Disney or somebody like that. But I'm not going to do that. First of all, because I only have one or two original ideas that I think are worth the crap, and it's transient. None of this stuff is going to last forever. How many of you have ever heard of Carnegie? Carnegie, the Ghost Sniffer, or whatever the hell he was called. It's basically an ancient superhero, or kind of more like a Professor Challenger from the Arthur Conan Doyle Lost World stories. But we're all going to be dust one day. This stuff, it's dust in waiting. Whatever we do, if it has any staying power, we're not going to know. Arthur Conan Doyle died knowing that his legacy was Sherlock Holmes and that it was going to go on without him. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster created Superman. A big corporation took it over and claimed it as theirs, and just treated Siegel and Schuster like dirt afterwards, because there were two young boys who just wanted to get their stuff out into the public, and the way to do that was to sell it to a huge corporation. National Periodical Publications was, at the time, a huge corporation. They did mostly comic books, and they threw stuff at the wall to see what would fit, and if it fit, they paid they paid off the owners, and they took it as their own. The only brain in that whole situation was Bob Kane, who, created Batman. His Batman was a far cry from what it actually turned out to be in Detective Comics number 27. He had a guy in a red outfit with black shorts and big cardboard bat wings and a domino mask over his eyes. He met with a guy named Bill Finger and said, "Can you help me with this?" And Bill Finger said, "Sure," and then created Batman from a couple of words that Bob Kane had. Well, in this case, it was Bob Kane that screwed the creator over for the rest of his life. It was rare that Bill Finger got any kind of work. And there's a story about how, for the Batman TV series in 1966, he wrote 2 episodes of the TV show. And he thought a good trade was to go in and say, hey, can I have my name on this? Thinking that he was going to have to trade away any kind of rights or money he was going to get for it, just for having people know that he did it. Well, they said, it's Hollywood, sure, you're going to get your name on it. He said, but can I get my name first? So Bill Finger wrote 2 episodes of the Batman TV series, got his name on it. People saw it. As far as anybody that was paying attention knew, Bill Finger was a guy who wrote for TV. He wrote a lot of stuff. He created a lot of stuff. He got credited for next to nothing. Very few pictures of him. Kind of the same with Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko, I think, in my opinion, created Spider-Man in much the same way that Bill Finger created Batman. He was given a description, switched it around, gave it his own style, and when somebody says, in this issue, Spider-Man fights a guy with mechanical arms, turned out to be Dr. Octopus. A lot of people think that Stan Lee created everything. No, he didn't. Sorry to bust your bubble, but I've encountered it with people who can't believe that Stan Lee would lie. Well, Bob Kane would lie. Why wouldn't Stan Lee? There's a guy, the guy who created a character called Fathom, and anyway, he did what he could with his comic book characters and the Justice Machine and stuff like that. He sold his characters. He just sold them, said, forget it, I'm done, I'm out of here, let somebody else do what they want to with it. And they did, and it was all legal because he sold it. He didn't denounce it. He just had nothing more to do with it. And he was okay with it. As he should be, because he sold it. But when a creator comes up with something and imbues it with life that came from here or out there somewhere, it's funneled through him. But it goes to a big company and they say, we own this character. We are the author of this character. Much the way Jim Shooter used to talk about Marvel Comics. When somebody says, did Jack Kirby create the Fantastic Four? Jim Shooter's company line was, Marvel Comics is the author of this book. And that's all he had to say. Legally, technically, that's all he had to say. Because the stuff was called work for hire, which is crap. It's a way of stealing creativity from creative people and giving it over to people who have no freaking clue in the world how this character was created. I'm not going to say poor Jack Kirby because the guy was called the king for most of his life. He still has fans. I'm a fan. Love Kirby. I love the Silver Age is my age of comics. I saw him a few times. I talked to him a few times. Jack Kirby was and is the king. In fact, I was talking to Gil Kane at Dallas Fantasy Fair in the mid-'80s, and we were just chatting up, and the guy comes up and wants to know who that is. I said, it's Gil Kane. You don't know who Gil Kane is? He goes, no. I said, well, Gil Kane, along with Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby, practically created comics. And if you're reading comics today, tell them thank you. When I mentioned Jack Kirby, they said, who's Jack Kirby? Me not being the encyclopedia that I am today, remember it was the 80s. I was too busy having fun to actually know anything. I started a sentence. The sentence was going to be Jack Kirby is one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. I said Jack Kirby is one of the, and Gil Kane cut me off. Happily. He said Jack Kirby is the greatest comic book creator of all time. Period. I don't know that this stuck with those kids, but it stuck with me because I'm sitting like 2 feet away from Gil Kane when he's praising Jack Kirby. And we talked for a little while longer. He's drawing. I got a picture of him drawing Batman. Like I said, do you mind if I take some pictures? He said, no, go right ahead. So somewhere around this house, I had pictures of Gil Kane's hands drawing Batman. And later I got him to draw Gil Kane to draw a Green Lantern for me because I couldn't think of anything else. He said, what would you like me to draw? I should have said a cowboy, a lizard monster from outer space, something from your brain, but being the stupid fanboy in the 80s, I said, Green Lantern! As though it was the only thing he had ever drawn, but it wasn't, Captain Action. I should have said Captain Action. Damn it, I'm an idiot. But he said, at the end of it, my boy, you and I need to correspond. And I said with a big, stupid smile on my face, fine by me. And then proceeded not to. I think he was sincere. Because I saw him a couple years later at another convention. I think it was in Atlanta. And I was an airbrush artist at the t-shirt shop. And the word artist, it's just a job title there. I didn't consider myself an artist. I just painted stuff on t-shirts and stuff. I airbrushed a portrait of Gil Kane that he drew on a cover of a Comics Journal. And on the back of the shirt, I wrote in big pink, hot pink, and electric blue airbrush paint, big damn Gil Kane fan. So I'm in a panel where he's sitting with Gary Groth, and they're talking about comics and comic strips. And this lady taps me on the back, and I'm pretty sure she's going to tell me to like move your head or something. But I turned around to see what it was. She said, "Can you stand up?" So, okay, lady, I stood up. I was in my 20s. I think she was probably in her 40s, and this lady's not wanting to look at my butt. Next thing I hear is, Gil! And he looks over and he's basically like, I'm working, lady. She says, look at this boy's shirt. And she said, turn around. I turned around and he looked and he saw it. And he said, I'll have to get a closer look at that later. Okay, I guess because he didn't have his specs on. But he did, and I knelt, literally knelt, at the feet of Gil Kane for 2 hours. There was no blood in my legs. As I talked to Gil Kane, who was sitting in a comfortable, soft chair in a hotel lobby, sitting next to Gary Groth, sitting across from Harvey Kurtzman, and some guy who I'm sure if I dug around in here, I'd find his name, but he didn't go too far in comics. But I think Gil Kane and Harvey Kurtzman, and they both wanted to look at my book, and I didn't bring a portfolio. I brought the book that I used for airbrush displays at my store. And then I showed Gil Kane some of my drawings. And he goes, yeah, these are good, but not nearly as good as your airbrush stuff. That was fine with me. Not nearly as good from Gil Kane, an honest appraisal. But when it was time for him to leave, he didn't want to leave. We're just sitting there talking. He was comfortable. Like I said, no blood in my legs. When I finally did get up, I had to kind of do a roll and pull myself up from the arm of the chair. Well, what happened was Gary Groth got up because Gil's wife was over by the door saying, get him, bring him over here. So Gary Groth comes over and says, she's over here. You're supposed to go to this steakhouse and let's go now. And he goes, okay. He says, well, see you later, young man. And he did. But he gets up. He walks over. I look up at Gary Groth, and Gary Groth makes this face. So I thought that was kind of a dick move, but okay. He knew Gil Kane. I didn't. But when I got up and I told my friend Carla Speed that I spent 2 hours talking to Gil Kane, she said, and I quote, "Who's that?" That was my friend who didn't know who Gil Kane was. She went on to go to work in the comic book industry. She created her own comic book called Finder. She won an Eisner Award. Haven't spoken to her in decades. She got married. She had a couple of kids. And I'm guessing she's one of those ladies who can't have guy friends, even though we knew each other forever. And, but, happy for her. Good for you. You got inside. I got to know people on the inside. I still have friends to this day who work in comics. I'm not going to name drop, but Dave Dorman, John Dell. Anyway, lots of guys that I can just go up to and talk to like I'm talking to you. And it helps that you know stuff about them. But it also helps that you know who came before. Jack Kirby. Met him. Steve Ditko. Never met him. What a waste of my life that was to never have met Steve Ditko. Gil Kane. Never met John Romita. I met William Stout. And I was Neil Adams. Yeah, I was actually at a Neil Adams appearance in a comic book shop about 12 years ago, talking to my friend Steven, and we were just talking back and forth about the people that we had met. Suddenly this kid, what is it with kids? This kid walks over and he says, "Excuse me." First of all, he was polite. Well, that was a shock. And he said, "I'm impressed." And I thought he was being sarcastic. He said, "All these people that you guys have met." And I went, "Oh yeah, I've met a lot of people that I never thought I would meet." And it's not from being a fanboy. I guess it kind of was, but it was not from being, a slobbering fanboy. I learned some stuff. I tried my hand at it, failed miserably. I think Stephen was on the edge of coming up with something right before he died. And that's sad to not see your potential, or to not have other people see your potential realized, especially your family. But we had been standing there talking about Bernie Wrightson. I met Bernie Wrightson a couple of times, stood in line for a long time. Jim Steranko, I have no clue about that guy, because I stood in line behind these guys. I had $50 in my hand, and he had a book that was $50, and I was ready to hand it to him, get my book, maybe get it autographed. That would have been cool. So he turned around and looked at me, but he was talking to a guy in line about business. He looked right at me, and I don't know if he saw the $50, which was going to be his, I swear. And he turned his head back around, kept talking to the guy. And I don't know if it was because he was being rude or if he knew that I was going to stand there until the crack of doom. Google that if you don't know what that is. But, met a lot of them. Hobnobbed with a lot of them. Never became one of them. Never met John Byrne. I mean, I was there, and I stood by him, I walked by him, I saw him. Was not real thrilled with him at the time because of what he did with Superman. And that had a lasting effect. And he kind of, I would say that if you don't like Superman today, it's because of what John Byrne did back in the 80s. But the company let him do it. But he had changed so many times since Siegel and Schuster created him that I guess in the big scheme it doesn't really matter. So my favorite comic book character of all time, DC, is Superman. Favorite one of all time of Marvel is the Hulk. Sorry, it's not Spider-Man. Fantastic Four is okay. It's very good, in fact, because Kirby repurposed his characters from Challengers of the Unknown. Four guys. They weren't family. They were loosely connected by the idea that they had taken an experimental plane up and it crashed in the Amazon jungle. And when they came down, they were all alive, not a scratch on them. They decided to become adventurers because they were living on borrowed time. The FF took an experimental rocket up. They were bombarded by cosmic rays. They crashed. They started getting superpowers, and they decided to become adventurers. Sounds kind of familiar. Sounds as if somebody who said he created the Fantastic Four was, what's the word? Oh, allegedly lying. I don't know for sure. I don't know that he knew, because once you hit 90, nobody should expect you to remember everything. I mean, I'll get there sooner than I hope. But anyway, this is an overview. This is an outline. I'm probably never going to do this again, but I just wanted to get that done. And yep, old men still collect crap like this. We still walk around stores looking for this kind of stuff. It's a hobby. I mean, if a guy can collect a train set or make a train set or spend his whole life honoring one football team or baseball team or basketball team, and nobody calls him a geek, that's too bad. Because these days, geek is a badge of honor. It didn't used to be. Talk about living through the dark times. All of this stuff that I do is not for my posterity. This is like a library, but this is just a taste of it. There's all kinds of stuff I'm interested in, but the stuff I'm mostly known for is the comic book collection. And as I said, this is just a little bit. I have 2 sacks of boxes right over here that you can't see. I have a closet full of boxes, short boxes, comic book boxes, and in my son's old room, I have, I don't know, there's a lot more in another room in the house. I learned the hard way not to put them in your attic. Don't put them in your attic. Always check for bugs, mostly silverfish, because they will climb into your bags and eat your comics. The real important stuff to me is in boxes underneath my bed, and the overflow is in the shed in the back of the house, and there's a lot of overflow. Might even be a fire hazard. Everything in here could be a fire hazard, but as I said, I'm 65. I got a lot of stuff here. Probably means something to other people than me, but I like it. Maybe not. I don't know. But if you have an interest, you have a collection, just give me a nod. Let me know. Should I keep talking? Should I develop a better personality? I mean, I could stand a few lessons in elocution or electrocution. I don't know. So, um, have a good time. Be who you are, not who you ain't. And maybe I'll see you on the Funway. Yippee tie, one on.